Every day, millions of American children walk into a school cafeteria, grab a tray, and eat lunch. For some kids, it's just a break between math and science, but for others, this is the most reliable meal that they will eat all day. And yet, when people outside the United States see American school lunches, they often have the same reaction.
I'm making school lunches from around the world and rating them to see which countries hate their kids the most. Eating this every day would be depressing. -2 out of 10.
But here's the thing. I think they're missing the point entirely. The American school lunch is not the way it is because no one cares about healthy eating. It looks this way because the American school lunch system was built to solve a very American set of problems: hunger, poverty, agriculture, budgets, mass logistics, politics, and childhood health, all at the same time. In fiscal year 2024, the USDA says the program provided more than 4.8 billion meals at a federal cost of about $17.7 billion US. So this is not just lunch. This is one of the largest daily feeding operations in the entire world. So I think we need to take a critical look and ask, what does the American school lunch reveal about how the United States treats children, poverty, food, and public health? And why do school lunches look so dramatically different abroad? Well, let's take a look.
The new bill keeps French fries on the menu at school. It delays a requirement to boost whole grains, and it calls the tomato paste on pizzas a vegetable. The changes were requested by food companies that make frozen pizzas and by potato growers.
Popular media often portrays cafeterias as serving nothing but greasy pizza and unbaked French fries. But is this actually true? Well, it's complicated, but the stereotype of the American school lunch as a nutritional free-for-all is outdated. There used to be this myth that ketchup counted as a vegetable. It doesn't. School meals are regulated, and in many cases, they're healthier than many people think. In fact, studies have shown that school meals are healthier than the food American children consume from any other source, including at home. In the United States, school lunches in the National School Lunch Program are governed by the federal USDA meal pattern rules. To receive federal reimbursement, schools must meet required meal components: fruits, vegetables, grains, meat or meat alternatives, and milk. The USDA rules also include calorie ranges and limits on saturated fat, trans fat, sodium, and under newer phased-in standards, added sugars. But there is a problem. Nutrition compliance is not the same thing as food culture. And that is why what actually makes it onto an American child's plate has a complicated history. So before we judge the standard American school lunch, we really need to understand the scale. This is not a local restaurant. It's not a family kitchen. It's not even a normal catering operation. The National School Lunch Program is a massive federal system that has to work every single school day in nearly every type of American community. Big cities, wealthy suburbs, poor rural towns, Native American reservations, military communities, and everything in between. On any given school day, the National School Lunch Program serves around 30 million students across nearly 100,000 schools and institutions, making it one of the top 5 largest school lunch programs in the entire world. And this scale matters because unlike some of the other countries we're going to explore later in this video, the American school lunch did not begin as a gourmet food catering program. It began as a national problem-solving machine. In 1853, the Children's Aid Society in New York started the first informal free school lunch for its vocational school. But it wasn't until the 1930s that school lunches really caught on in schools around the rest of the country, as schools began expanding beyond just offering basic primary education and began including things like a school nurse. They started documenting cases of malnourishment, prompting Congress to officially set money aside for school lunches for the first time in 1935. But not all that dissimilar to today, using tax dollars to feed local children in need wasn't always a popular social benefit. Restaurant owners sued school districts for lost business, but thankfully, the courts typically ruled in favor of the school's right to operate lunchrooms. And by 1941, roughly 6.2 million American children were eating government-funded lunches. The modern National School Lunch Program was created through the National School Lunch Act of 1946. The law's policy statement says it was intended as a measure of national security to safeguard the health and well-being of the nation's children and encourage domestic consumption of agricultural commodities. And that phrase, national security, is really important. After World War II, child nutrition was not just seen as a family issue, it was seen as a national issue. A country with unhealthy children was a country with a weaker future workforce, weaker military readiness, and a bigger public health problem. But there was also another piece of this puzzle: agriculture. School lunch also became a way to connect hungry children with surplus commodities that farmers had too much of, namely pork, dairy, and wheat. So from the very beginning, school lunch was not just about asking what is the best meal for a child. It was also asking a whole host of other questions, like how do we support farmers? How do we use surplus food? How do we fight childhood hunger? How do we make children healthier? How do we do this cheaply? And how do we deliver it everywhere? And that's a very different starting point than, say, designing lunch as a cultural, educational, and culinary experience. But let's talk about money, because this is where the American school lunch system gets brutally practical and practically brutal. The average cost of a school lunch in the United States is $3.09. Prices range from about $2.92 to $3.58, depending on the region and school. But who pays that price depends not only on where you live, but how much money your parents make. According to the USDA Economic Research Service, students qualify for free lunch if a family income is at or below 130% of the federal poverty line, reduced price lunch between 130% and 185%, and above that, students generally pay full price. That income-based structure matters because it tells us something really important. American school lunch is not just a meal program, it's also a poverty and anti-hunger program. You see, in some countries like India, Indonesia, and Brazil, who serve more students each day than the United States, free school lunch is universal and treated as part of the normal school day. Everyone eats, everyone participates. The meal is part of education. But in the United States, school lunch often is treated as a targeted benefit, something especially associated with low-income children. In the 1970s, there was an influx of lower-income students of color into the free or reduced fare lunch program. This led to a perception in the United States that school meals were like welfare food. So many families, especially from higher-income households, started sending their kids to school with their own homemade packed lunch, opting out of the program. The problem is, as full-price paying students opt out, the program has less money to spend on things like higher quality ingredients or to pay cafeteria workers better, leading to an insidious cycle. It also didn't help that in the 1980s, the Reagan administration came in and took a hatchet to a lot of social welfare programs. The school lunch budget was cut by over 25% thanks to him. So today, while the 4.8 billion school lunches that get served up at schools across the country start with federal money, on its way to cafeterias, school districts have to order the meals while operating on paper-thin margins. They're paying for labor, storage, equipment, nutrition compliance, menu planning, transportation, cleaning, waste, and the cost of serving meals quickly to hundreds or thousands of children. So as that cost for fresh produce, meat, and labor rise, nutrition directors were forced to choose between operating at a deficit or swapping high-quality ingredients for cheaper, higher processed fillers. And that creates a strange category of food on American lunch tables. Processed, but compliant and cost-effective. A cafeteria pizza like this one from Domino's can be engineered to meet whole grain rules. A chicken nugget like this one from Tyson can be reformulated to hit sodium targets. A flavored milk can be adjusted to fit sugar rules. A packaged meal, like this one from Kraft Heinz, can be designed specifically for schools. And this gets to the heart of the problem. American school lunch is often built around making industrial food acceptable. Now, this does not mean that every American school lunch is bad. I grew up eating every single item I just showed you on the screen, and I loved that rectangular cardboard and crust pizza. Loved it. But again, structurally, the system rewards food that is cheap, predictable, compliant, and fast. And the reality is that even with these industrial-sized machines behind it, American schools still struggle with food-related finances. as school lunch debt is rapidly becoming a problem across the nation. You see, when families face financial struggles, they often fall behind on paying for their portion of the subsidized meals. Schools cannot simply deny a child food, but federal programs often don't fully reimburse school districts for unpaid or defaulted accounts. They actually must absorb that mounting debt, which directly bleeds into other areas of the educational budget. Today, over 75% of U.S. school districts report unpaid student meal debt, ranging from the single digits to more than $856,000. Nationwide, the average unpaid debt per district is currently sitting at nearly $40,000, leading to some schools turning to crowdfunding and private donations to provide financial assistance. And that kind of helps explain why the American school lunch can feel so strange, because it's not just food. It's welfare policy, agriculture policy, logistics policy, health policy, and education policy, all squeezed onto one plastic tray.
Mr. President, I have yet to meet a person in Minnesota that is hungry. Now, I should say that hunger is a relative term, Mr. President. You know, I had a cereal bar for breakfast. I guess I'm hungry now.
And the culmination of all of these policies also means that school lunch is not just food on a tray, but a political battleground as well. The Make America Healthy Again, or MAHA movement, associated with HHS Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr., is pushing a stronger focus on chronic disease, ultra-processed foods, food dyes, added sugars, and the idea that children should eat more real food. Now, MAHA isn't necessarily wrong that school food lunches can be overly processed. But meanwhile, school nutrition directors are basically saying you can't up and demand European-style, fresh, scratch-cooked meals while funding American cafeterias like fast food survival operations. The problem is, that message is often lost if your news sources aren't reporting in a fair and balanced manner, which is why I'm excited to partner with Ground News. Their app and website offer a level of transparency that I very much appreciate when I am sifting through the data and reports on every subject I cover on my channel. It lets you access worldwide sources your algorithm probably isn't surfacing. In a recent story I read on Ground News about the Trump administration's new dietary guidelines encouraging American children to eat more protein and full-fat dairy while reducing ultra-processed foods and added sugars was covered by 310 news sources. And with Ground News, I can easily see differences between left and right reporting. For this story, a left-leaning outlet highlights that the new food pyramid is, quote, lying to you, noting that increasing the consumption of protein and dairy would also dramatically increase the cost of school lunches, a cost that many cannot afford under the 2025 Trump budget cuts. While a right-leaning outlet does acknowledge that the guidelines would impact what is served in public schools, those impacts are all positive, as the Trump administration intends to, quote-unquote, fix bad advice from the government and the medical establishment. If one side of the political spectrum is ignoring a story, the Blind Spot feed will let you know so you can make up your own mind about how reliable the reporting is. Staying informed this way lets you take an objective, data-driven approach to reading the news. I think it's a tool that we all need and can benefit from today. So go head over to ground.news/Ashton to check it out, or click the link down below in the description of this video. You can subscribe through my link to get 40% off the Unlimited Access Vantage subscription. Plus, when you subscribe, you are not only supporting me, you're also supporting an independent platform trying to make the news more transparent. But other countries often start from a different question. What should eating at a school feel like? To understand what makes American school lunch different, let's take a look at Finland, probably one of the most famous examples of universal school meals. Providing free-of-charge school meals since the 1940s, Finland isn't just the longest-running free-of-charge school feeding program in the world. They've made it a legal right for all pupils attending elementary, basic, and upper secondary education. And this truly changes the meaning of lunch. In Finland, school lunch is not just for poor children. It's not just a safety net. It's not something that marks you as different from the rest of the school. It's just a part of it. Meals in Finland are most often offered in a self-service buffet style. Students are provided autonomy to select their portions, while cafeteria workers actively promote nutritional balance, reduce food waste using psychological nudging techniques, and staff guidance. But the spread typically consists of typical Finnish foods: a warm main course, dishes with fish, meat, vegetables, beans, and sprouts as part of a vegetarian diet, and a side of vegetables, like salad, grated vegetables, or fresh vegetable pieces, bread, table spread, and a drink, skimmed or semi-skimmed milk, or buttermilk, and of course, water to quench thirst. But beyond the nutritional value, the Finnish National Agency for Education views the school cafeteria as a vital learning environment. According to a 2008 report, lunchtime should have, quote, a pleasant, quiet dining area, allowing pupils to take their time and help them to understand the role of eating, meal times and spending time with each other in promoting well-being. A clean and well-lit school canteen in a nice location and with small tables is preferable and more comfortable for eating and conversation. Special attention is paid to taste and the temperature of food. Tempting and mouth-watering presentation of food is also important. Freshly baked bread should be served as often as possible. In Finland, school meals are also a teaching tool and a learning environment integrated into the national core curriculum. Pupils are encouraged to participate in the planning, evaluation, and even practical arrangement of school meals, for example, through work experience program, which support learning about food, sustainability, and working life skills. Japan offers another model. Here, school lunch is often tied directly to food education, responsibility, and community. In 2005, the national government passed the Basic Act on Shokukiku, meaning food and nutrition education. And it's a concept deeply embedded within the National School Meal Program. Most school meal programs are managed by a food and nutrition teacher who also leads on preparing meal menus. This teacher also actively engages with students, families, and shares information around good nutrition. Menus are designed to include a diversity of foods guided by the local seasons. It's also common for schools to serve international meals once a month to introduce students to new food and cultures from around the world. The central government also strongly encourages schools to use local produce in developing their menus. In 2021, 56% of all food purchases made from participating schools were locally produced. And as you can see from these photos here, the typical Japanese school lunch consists of rice, some form of protein like fish, chicken, or beef, vegetables, soup, and milk. But to me, what makes Japan especially interesting isn't just the menu, it's the ritual. You see, in many schools, you don't actually eat in a cafeteria, you eat right in your classroom, with a designated group of students dining aprons, plastic caps, and serving their peers. They eat together, they clean up. Lunch becomes a part of the school culture. And this is almost the complete opposite of the American image. A rushed cafeteria line, disposable trays, and a race to get through lunch before the school bell rings. Japan treats lunch as something that children participate in. But the United States often treats lunch as something children are processed through. And that sounds harsh, but watching that footage and comparing it to my own experience in the school lunch system, where I had maybe 15 minutes to eat if I was lucky, the difference is obvious. Now, it would be easy to pretend that Europe has solved this problem, but that wouldn't be 100% honest. I live in Germany, and I can tell you from personal experience, Germany is not Finland. Now, we don't have one single national school lunch identity. School meals here vary widely depending on the state, municipality, school type, provider, family income, and whether that school is half day or full day. Where I live in the Black Forest, the elementary school my children will attend ends at 1 o'clock. Kids here either go home for lunch or a hot lunch is provided via a local nonprofit who organizes after-school care. Our high schoolers, however, do have an on-site mensa or cafeteria, which is run fairly similarly to the US system where food is coordinated with a catering service. By the way, it costs €5.50 for an appetizer, a main, and a dessert. But you don't have to eat there. You have a 40-minute break built in so you can leave and go get lunch somewhere else if you want. But that being said, there is a national nutrition framework from the German Nutrition Society, the DGE quality standard for meals in schools. Nutritionally, the German system pushes similar basics to that of the United States. More vegetables, fruit, whole grains, lower sugar, lower sodium, and better fats. But the emphasis differs. The United States model is more component-based and compliance-driven. A reimbursable lunch must include specific categories and serving amounts. But the German model is more of a menu cycle and food quality-based. For lunches over 5 catering days, the DGE calls for vegetables and a salad every day, at least 1 legume serving, fruit at least twice, dairy at least twice, meat or sausage no more than once, fish once, and rapeseed oil as the standard oil. Another major contrast is meat and sustainability. The DGE explicitly frames school meals around health promoting and sustainable eating, with plant-based foods as the foundation and only meat used moderately. The DGE standard notes that meat can provide nutrients, but also contains unfavorable components, especially in a processed form, and recommends lean meat in moderation. So the contrast is not America bad, Europe, Asia perfect. The real contrast is this. When countries decide that lunch is a part of education, I do think that the system just looks different. When countries treat lunch as an add-on, a welfare benefit, or a logistical burden, the food often reflects that. And the United States is one of the clearest examples of what happens when a country asks for a school lunch to solve poverty, nutrition, agriculture, and scheduling without fully treating or funding it as a public good. And the uncomfortable truth is that the United States school lunch system is unhealthy, but maybe not for the obvious reasons. School lunch is one of the few places where public policy has direct control over what millions of children eat every day. A good, balanced, fresh lunch has impacts far beyond the table. And if the United States has a childhood obesity crisis, a diabetes crisis, a processed food crisis, a food inequality crisis, well, then school lunch becomes a test. Can a country build a healthier food environment for children, or will the cafeteria just reflect the same industrial food system that children are already surrounded by everywhere else? And that's why the debate gets so emotional. Because school lunch is not only about what happens at noon, it's what America thinks children deserve. And sadly, there are a lot of people out there who don't think ensuring one good square meal a day is the bare minimum that a country should provide. But the tray also reveals the limits of the American approach, because I do think when a country treats lunch as a cost problem, the food's gonna look like a cost problem. When a country treats lunch as education, well, food starts looking like education. A lot of food for thought, don't you think? But there are, of course, a lot of different approaches and menu items around the globe, so I actually thought it'd be interesting to hear from you in the comment section. What was your favorite school lunch? Let me know down in the comments below. And as always, if you enjoyed what you saw today, be sure to hit that thumbs up button. And for more content from Type Ashton, hit that subscribe button. So, I'll see you in the next video. Tschüss!